Welcome to 40 Plus Fitness for Women. I'm Lynn Setterloff-Airisto, your host. And today we are going to be answering some questions, some frequently asked questions regarding diet and nutrition. So a few days ago, and by the time you hear this, it'll be a couple weeks ago, I put up a reel that said, hey, if you could sit down one-to-one with a menopause fitness coach, what is the first question you would ask? And I got a lot of questions around, weight and how to eat and these kinds of things. So I thought that these would be good for all of you to hear. And maybe some of you have these same questions. So there are 5 questions. I'm going to try to go through them kind of succinctly so that this doesn't take all afternoon. Okay. Question 1. How do you get enough protein without gaining weight? And I think this is one that I have heard so many times. Women try to increase their protein and then they notice that, hey, wait a second, my calories have gone up. Well, right. If you simply increase something to what you're already eating today, then of course your calories are going to go up. It's like if you have always been eating a certain way, then you add a candy bar every day. That is extra calories and it'll throw you into a calorie surplus. So yes, it does require kind of a revamp of how you're eating. And so first of all, I would say try to choose protein sources that are low fat and low calorie. All right. So instead of having full fat cottage cheese, choose the low fat or the non-fat. Same thing with Greek yogurt. Choose chicken, which is low fat, ground beef that's low fat, and the protein powders. Now, here is a key one. The protein powders, there are huge differences in the calories per gram of protein and protein powders. So for those, you really want to pay attention to the label. And here's what you want to do when you're looking at the label. So usually, well, I live in Europe, so they have it based on 100 grams of the protein powder. But whatever the serving size is, it goes like this. If you were eating pure protein with nothing else, it would be 4 calories per gram of protein. All right. So that's kind of the gold standard of like a protein powder. I don't know if there's any protein powder who gets down that low, but that would be if it was 100% protein that you're eating. So what you want to do is for the serving size, you look at how many calories that serving size, whatever that line is on the nutrition guide, if it's the serving size, if it's for 100 grams, whatever, like look down that same column. So you look at the number of calories. Let's say in a serving size, there's 100 calories, just to make the math easy. And then you look at how many grams of protein you are getting in that serving size. Let's say you're getting 10. Well, what you know in that case, you divide the calories, 100, by the grams of protein, 10, and you discover that actually you are paying 10 calories for each gram of protein. Now that's fairly high. I would not choose a protein powder that has 10 calories per gram of protein. That's just too much. The ones that I've been able to find here, the best ones, are about 5 calories per gram of protein. So that's pretty good. And I also have noticed that the non-flavored, they might have a little bit lower calorie count than the flavored ones, but kind of depends on the brand. So that's one place where you may inadvertently be taking on a whole ton more calories than you bargained for. And another thing that you should definitely look out for is everything that's labeled like high protein. It's not necessarily, high protein compared to what, right? So there again, if you're looking at a protein bar, if you're looking at anything. I look at the high protein dairy, like their yogurty things and quark and these kinds of things. I always look at how many calories that serving size has in it and how many grams of protein that serving is gonna give me. And then I do the math. So I divide the calories by the grams of protein, and I want to get as close to 4 as possible. And if it's 10, yeah, and then I really question that, yeah, are there any better options out there? Just to be aware. Okay, so that was a lot on the protein powder and the protein products, but I think that is one place. I've had clients who start looking at the label and they realize they're getting 20 calories per gram of protein out of their quote unquote protein powder. And that's not really just a protein powder. I mean, I would maybe feed something like that to my son, who is like a stick, still growing, like he's just going through his growth spurt. So we need to like get calories on him, but not in a midlife woman. Nope. Okay. Like different use cases for that kind of protein powder. But in general, like when you're thinking about your food choices also, you may need to revamp your recipes a little bit. And I guess one trick or tip, I guess it's more of a tip than a trick, for making sure that you're not going overboard with the calories and you're still getting in your protein is that you really find some recipes that you can do on repeat. So for me, that is my spaghetti and meat sauce. I know that that does not have very much fat in it. It has a lot of protein in it. Then I might add cottage cheese with it. I have certain meals that I just know are good bang for the buck. And I make those over and over again. And yes, it is effort on the front end, to find those recipes. Of course, if you Google online, you can find a whole bunch of them, but find something that you like and then do those over and over again. Because yes, you do need to be paying attention to your overall calorie consumption as well as the amount of protein you're eating. And just a reminder, the recommendation for building and maintaining muscle is the 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So if you're very much overweight, then think about what is like a reasonable body weight that you could try to get down to, and that calculated according to that. And the minimum per day, I would say, is 100 grams of protein. So if you're eating barely any protein right now, jumping to whatever that target number is. So for me, it's 140. Your stomach may kind of rebel and it may feel really, really tough. So do it in steps, get used to eating more protein, adding it into your life. Okay, question number 2, which is really very related to this, is what should my macros be? Now, a lot of people online talk about, oh, you should know your exact macros, how much carbs, how much protein, how much fat you're consuming. But honestly, the thing that you really need to be looking at as a midlife woman is your total calorie consumption. So if you want to maintain your weight at what it is, then how many calories do you need to be consuming in a day to maintain that weight? And then hitting your protein goals. So if you can get those 2 things to work, then you're golden, okay? And when you've gotten those 2 things to work for a long time, right? That feels comfortable. You're used to that. It is a habit for you. Then start like tweaking, adding some more requirements, like, for example, increasing your fiber. That would be the next one that I would tackle. But whether you want to have fat or carbs to fill the calories that, you'll hit a certain number of calories from the protein, and whether the rest of it is carbs or fat, it kind of doesn't matter. What I have noticed is that if I've gone and done an aerobic workout, then I will crave more carbs than if I've just done weight training. And of course, I crave more fat and carbs in general if I haven't slept enough. So, but that's another topic. But so don't get too hung up on the macros. Think about the protein and your full calorie amount. If you want to know more about how to get in enough protein each day, check out episode number 32 of this podcast. And I also have episode number 10, which talks about protein and what it does to help you build muscle and how to make sure you're getting enough. So those 2 episodes are real good if you want to know more about protein. The next question is, are there any foods that are off limits during this hormonal time? And the answer is no. There are no foods that you can't eat. Now, that said, that doesn't mean go to town and eat everything that you want to eat. You know, I am no longer my 16-year-old son who is just going through a growth spurt and can literally sit there and put away the Ben and Jerry's, eat like a kilo of chocolate every day and still look like he hasn't been fed, right? That's not our situation. So you need to make choices. Obviously, if you're going to choose something which is more calorie dense, like an ice cream or a slice of pizza, then you need to also balance that out with some things that are less calorie dense. Or so eat less of that ice cream than you would of, let's say, fat-free yogurt. Okay. So you just need to be smart about it, but you can eat anything you want. Now, whether you will feel better by, reducing sugar or all those things, that is something you need to test out for yourself. And the thing that I would recommend, and this is related to the earlier question and answers, is protein, right? Focus on the protein. And what I have found and what a lot of my clients have found is that once you start thinking protein first, you feel more satiated, so you don't get as many cravings for like, oh, I don't really know what I want, but I want something. And then you try eating this and you realize that wasn't it. And then you try something else. Like you get so much less of that. And the other thing that will help with cravings is getting enough sleep. Because honestly, when you are not getting enough sleep, then your hunger and satiety hormones, which tell you that, hey, I'm full or hey, I'm hungry, those just go haywire. And that's why you will notice on days when you've slept badly that you kind of crave more food. It's easier to kind of fall off the bandwagon with your food. So try to get enough sleep and eat enough protein, but essentially you can eat anything. One more note is just that alcohol. So if you are having a lot of these perimenopause symptoms, like hot flushes and these kind of vasomotor symptoms, they can be exacerbated by alcohol, like just flushing, all kinds of things. And I know a lot of women notice that when they hit a certain age, it's like alcohol just doesn't treat them quite the same way. You don't feel as good when you're drinking. You don't want to drink as much, and you certainly don't feel so good the next day. So alcohol is something that you may want to limit a bit more as you go through menopause and get older. And finally, the $1,000,000 question, which is how to keep the weight off once you've lost it. Now, I was thinking, should I do a whole separate podcast episode on this one? Because it is such a multifaceted topic, and maybe at some point I will, but I will point out a few things. First of all, one of the reasons why I don't offer like a weight loss program where I would give you, this is what you need to eat over the next, whatever, 12 weeks, is that what ends up happening is that you can stand on your head for 12 weeks, right? As long as you see there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and soon I'll be able to get back to normal life, right? So you may lose the weight and then you stop your diet and then you go back to normal life and then you start regaining the weight very quickly, or maybe more slowly, but eventually you'll regain it because you haven't made changes really to your habits. So earlier I talked about how you want to choose a few meals or a collection of meals that you can eat on repeat. Maybe you have 3 breakfasts that have the right calorie, protein, combination, and some lunches and some snacks and these kinds of things. So you really want to build habits and keep those. So if I'm coaching somebody and they want to do a fat loss phase, then instead of me giving them a whole bunch of recipes, I really want to look at what are they eating now and what kinds of habit shifts can we make? Can we make some tweaks? Because, all of us like different kinds of foods, like food texture and all that thing. So the things that I eat that work for me, if I give them to you, you might be like, oh my God, if I had to eat these for the rest of my life, I would be like, yeah, I wouldn't want to. that would be the end, right? So it needs to be something that you can adhere to. And so it is far more useful to find things that you like. Maybe you like Tex-Mex, maybe whatever the thing is that you like, and find something individual. But the point is to build habits that aren't just for the 12 weeks, right? That they're for the rest of your life. And yes, in the diet, you are in a calorie deficit. So you're eating less than what you need. But actually, once you've established those meals that work in the calorie deficit, when you shift into maintenance mode, it just means that you might make some tweaks to those to bring the calorie level to the maintenance level. Maybe it is that you allow yourself an ice cream once a week, or maybe it is that you eat a slightly bigger portion size, or you have some fruit for dessert every day, or whatever. But essentially, when you're doing the calorie deficit, that you learn ways of eating that you can continue with after you're out of the calorie deficit. I hope that makes sense. And then the other piece of this is actually very much like in your mind. So studies have shown that of people who go on a diet, lose weight, and are able to keep it off for years afterwards, one of the biggest correlations that they have found is that these are the people who have made a mindset shift, right? They have kind of changed their identity around food. So instead of being like the person who sits down in front of the TV every evening with a bag of chips or some ice cream, maybe they've swapped that out for carrot sticks. Or maybe their new lifestyle or how they identify themselves is that they don't eat in the last hour that they're awake, which, by the way, is a really good tip. That has helped me a lot. I noticed that, holy cow, that's when the calories really get consumed, in that last hour when you're kind of tired and you're distracted watching TV. But having this kind of mindset shift and thinking of yourself as, I'm somebody who eats healthy. I'm somebody who eats 4 healthy meals a day, or I'm somebody who eats protein and vegetables. I'm somebody who doesn't buy chips at the store. I don't keep candy around my house. I don't need candy. Like, when you start thinking of yourself and identifying in a new way, you're able to sustain those habits much better. And by the way, this pertains also to fitness habits. So instead of thinking of yourself as, oh, I was always the one who was picked last, or I'm the cardio queen, if you start thinking of yourself as, I'm the one with muscle, I'm the strongest 50-year-old in the gym, you start thinking about that is your identity, then it becomes much, much easier to maintain that habit or those habits going forward. So hard to create the habits, that's always the hardest part. And then maintaining them is much easier when you become that person, right? That you have just been practicing in that habit making stage. But for sure, the short answer to that question of how to keep the weight off once you've lost it is that you need to eat in maintenance. In other words, your calorie level needs to be such that you're not eating in a surplus. So if you're eating more calories than what your body is consuming in the course of the day, then your weight is going to go up. And actually, okay, I said then your body's consuming over the course of a day, but it's enough to think on a weekly basis. So if you, for example, for me, 2,000 calories a day is about what I can eat without my weight going up. So over the course of a week, 2,000 times 7 is 14,000. Then I don't need to eat 2,000 every day, right? If I know that I'm going to go to a party on Saturday, or that I have more time to eat, or that I want a glass of wine or maybe a gin and tonic on the weekend, then I can organize my life so that I'm used to eating a little bit less Monday through Friday, still not in a starvation state though, right? I don't want to be hungry, but I can be like not full on Monday through Friday, or let's say Sunday through Friday or whatever on the weekdays. And then that leaves a little bit more leeway for me to eat a little bit more on the weekends. And I always answer these questions rambling a little bit, but I hope it's helpful to understand the thought process and the logic behind these things and not just kind of get the black and white answer. All right, so those were the diet and nutrition questions that I had gotten so far. Please let me know if these were useful to you and whether you want more episodes on diet and nutrition. And I've actually been thinking about adding a little bit more diet stuff into my group program, because now it's been very much focused around getting started weight training. And if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you, I would love to hear, just to get some feedback of what you all are interested in getting some more help with. So drop me a message in my DMs or send me an email. If you're interested in learning more about diet and nutrition and protein, then here are some great resources. Podcast number 65 on how to stop your metabolism from slowing down in midlife. And podcast number 62, which is the benefits of tracking what you eat. And that's especially good if you're looking at doing some long-term nutrition changes. I recommend that one. Till next week, happy training.